Good morning. My name is Leah Hood, and I am a social studies teacher at Lakeville South High School in Lakeville, Minnesota, ISD 194, Local 1803. I am a member of Education Minnesota Lakeville and have served as a building rep for 3 years. I am currently chair of our Governing Relations Advocate Committee and a member of the Education Minnesota PAC Board. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy lives to help strengthen our union by attending this year's political conference, and especially for the important work and the challenging work that you do each day on behalf of students across the state of Minnesota. I'm honored to have this opportunity to share my story with you today. I have a keen and special appreciation for the value of belonging to our union, because before I began teaching in Lakeville, I spent the first 6 years of my teaching career at a public charter school here in Minnesota. We had no union, no contract. We were at-will employees. When I started teaching at the charter school, I actually didn't know very much about charter schools, although I had a vague sense that they were not a long-term or effective solution to solving problems within public education. But I was a young, brand new teacher, thrilled and relieved to get my first job offer. I want to be very clear here that the people I worked with at the charter school were second to none. I loved what I taught, I loved my students, and I loved my colleagues. In my view, we were a group of excellent educators working within and being taken advantage of by a bad system. Take a moment to think for yourself what you think might happen to students and teachers in a school without a contract or a union. I assure you from my experience, all of those things happen in schools without unions, and they happen quickly and all at once. In my 6 years at the charter school, very little changed in any meaningful, positive way, and working conditions mostly only went downhill. They did not improve. For example, we had no salary schedule when I started. Teacher pay was all over the board, and compensation was awarded in a haphazard manner with no real reason behind differences in pay between teachers. Nothing was really rewarded. I wasn't rewarded for my years of experience. I wasn't rewarded for my level of education. I wasn't rewarded for my evaluation scores or my students' test scores. I only made around $30,000 a year for my first few years, and my health insurance covered only me. It did not and would not ever cover more than me, not my spouse, not any children we might have in the future, regardless of how long I worked there. I had no 403B and no matching contributions from the school. After 6 years of performing very well, consistently on quarterly evaluations, after earning a master's degree and serving for 3 years as department head, I still only made $36,000 a year. Had I stayed at the school, which I didn't, I would have topped out forever at $50,000 a year with no change in my benefits package. I believe that the salary and benefits that I even was earning there were only as high as they even were because of the presence of the union driving that up in the surrounding area. Beyond the insulting and unprofessional compensation package, which does nothing to attract or retain high-quality teachers for students, for years we had no clear job descriptions. In fact, we only ever got some clearer job descriptions because the teachers asked for them. And even after we got job descriptions, they were not usually followed. They were job descriptions in name only. The phrase "other duties as assigned" was used and abused by administration, who, to be fair, I got along well with, and who were usually doing the best they could with what they had as well. I ended up being told by administration to write a weekly K-8 newsletter for the entire school, plan all the field trips for the whole school K-8, do lunch duty and recess duty and after-school duty. They even had me teaching choir 1 day a week for a while because the part-time choir teacher was a yoga instructor who couldn't make it to school on Fridays. I do not have a license to teach vocal music. Side note, I also taught language arts there for my first 2 years, and I'm not licensed in that area either. I was not afforded extra time or compensation to complete any of these requirements. And all of this is really just the tip of the iceberg. I was burning out, and my focus each day, sadly, was not able to be first and foremost and fully on my students and my classroom. I was being spread too thin. By the end of my time there, I actually dreaded going into work each day. We had no formal process for teacher development, no process for grievances. Teachers were let go with very little warning. There were no improvement plans, no timelines or clear expectations for improvement, no real support in improving. Good teachers were let go, and those of us who remained lost morale and lived with constant anxiety that we would lose our jobs without warning and without understanding why. Some teachers left voluntarily mid-year, which was within their legal rights and which I completely understood, but which negatively impacted students. Administrative turnover was also high. I worked with 5 different administrators in 6 years, and a few of them also left the school after just a few months mid-school year. Teachers voted with their feet. Turnover every year was high, which is a trend we see in many charter schools across the state and nation. But the year that I chose to leave, almost 50% of the staff left the school all at once and voluntarily out of dissatisfaction. I tried to invest in the charter school and to be a part of positive change. I was a part of a group of teachers who developed a salary schedule and presented it to the school board, which adopted and implemented the schedule, and I served on the school board twice. But it is a system that is designed to allow administration to have all the power and which allows teachers to be devalued, and it has no intention of changing. I realized as I advanced in my career that charter schools are not aligned with my personal or professional values and that I didn't want to be a part of one anymore. I've now been at ISD 194 for 4 years, and I have been happier and healthier every day since. A few years after I voluntarily left the charter school that I worked at, it was shut down by the state. While students at the school were cared for by the staff and were receiving a good education, the charter school had failed, as most charter schools do, to demonstrate better academic outcomes for students than traditional unionized public schools, all while taking us backwards in terms of working conditions and compensation. I value our union because I believe our union strengthens and elevates our profession, and in doing so, protects students. I believe our union protects good teachers and results in better working conditions and compensation packages, which help raise the quality of life for teachers and our families. I value our union because students and teachers need and deserve to have a meaningful body working full-time on behalf of public education and on behalf of what is best for students. Without our union, our professional voices will be heard and heeded even less than they are now. Teachers' professional voices are rarely and barely heeded with the presence and power of unions, let alone without. The salaries and benefits that we earn and the compensated planning and grading time we do have are only even what they are, which is not enough because of the power of acting with a shared purpose and speaking with one voice. Our union advocates for the best interests of students and their families as well as for teachers. No one is looking out for the best interests of the education of our students more than we are. No one. Through our union, we have fought against harmful testing practices and for best practices and social justice within our schools and our communities. As long as legislators and others with deep pockets outside of our profession have influence over public education at the local, state, and national levels, it is important that we have a unified voice, presence, and influence at all of those same levels. Thanks. Those who seek to undermine our union demonstrate an ignorance of, at best, and a disdain for, at worst, the decision of millions of educators across the country who decide to join and support our union, and more critically, a fundamental lack of understanding that acting in the interest of teachers is almost always synonymous with acting in the interest of students. Students cannot get what they need if their teachers are not getting what we need. The two are inextricably intertwined. That's right. The strongest, most effective public education systems in the world and across our country have strong unions. In fact, countries and states with the weakest unions demonstrate the worst educational outcomes for students. There is much evidence that, contrary to what many would have the public believe, the presence of a union actually leads to hiring and retaining higher quality teachers. Competitive salaries and benefits attract high-quality teaching candidates. And since the prospect of tenure discourages districts from retaining low-performing teachers, unions lead to investment by districts in good teachers. Our union protects the quality of teaching and education for our students. I grew up in a union household. My mom has taught high school social studies and has been a proud union member for over 40 years in Iowa, which a year ago lost its collective bargaining rights just days after their election in November. Stripping collective bargaining rights wasn't even a major campaign issue in Iowa last year. But given the first opportunity, anti-union forces in Iowa took away teachers' professional voices and made them and their families vulnerable to an even further devaluing and degradation of the teaching profession. Iowa's government did this in the midst of a teacher shortage. Thankfully, my mom's local school board rallied immediately, within days, to shield its staff from the state legislators and governor by fast-tracking approval of a 2-year contract when they usually have only approved 1-year contracts in the past, locking in existing salary, benefits, and procedures because they understand the importance of their staff's working conditions, compensation, and morale on the lives of students, teachers, and teachers' families. Teachers all across Iowa right now are hoping to flip their legislature in the midterms next fall and restore their right to collectively bargain for anything except base salary. The only thing preventing Minnesota right now from looking like Iowa or Wisconsin or Michigan or Arizona is our governor, who is going to retire next year. It is imperative that we continue to have a goalie for labor and for public education and for students in the governor's mansion after Governor Dayton retires. Education Minnesota, without question, has the power to influence, if not determine, the outcome of next year's midterm elections, if we turn out to vote. Of about 86,000 members statewide, about 33,000 members of our union regularly vote in general election cycles for president, but do not vote in the midterms. Next fall's important elections are midterm elections. Recent congressional and gubernatorial elections in Minnesota have been won and lost on margins of just over 300 votes and just over 8,000 votes. If we show up to vote for the candidate that supports students, teachers, public education, labor, and our profession, we absolutely can influence the outcome of a crucial election for our students, our families, our profession, and ourselves and our state. We have to be aware, organized, and active. As always, no one else will do this work for us. We have to organize ourselves. Please help us educate and energize all our members all across the state to vote next fall to protect public education. Thank you.